Good morning, children. Welcome back to the English class. Today we are going to continue with our topic on summary writing. Now, I am sure you all know what a summary is and how to write a summary. What are the important qualities that should be in a summary? We have three poems. We can ask you to write the summary of any of these. That is the first one, trees, which we did first. Then we did the old Gumby cat. And today the third one, which is in our course, the raven and the fox. We are going to see how to keep the points which we discussed about summary writing in mind and then write the summary of the raven and the fox. Now, please open your books on page number 48 in your Real English book and just read and tell me how many stanzas of how many lines are there. Yes, there are 16 lines in the poem and there are 4 stanzas. That means each stanza is of 4 lines. Now, because it is 16, we have to write around one third of the poem. It should be brief, it should be short. So, it has to be around 5 sentences. Now 5 to 6 sentences and all the important points have to be included. 5 to 6 sentences does not mean that we leave the keywords or we leave the important points. Now the poem, The Raven and the Fox, you all know. I'm going to read it once for you. You also please read it with me from your books. Mr. Raven was perched upon a limb, and Reynard the fox looked up at him. For the raven held in his great big beak a morsel the fox would go far to seek. Said the fox in admiring tones, "My word, Sir Raven, you are a handsome bird. Such feathers, if you would only sing, the birds of these woods would call you king." The raven, who did not see the joke, forgot that his voice was just a croak. He opened his beak in his foolish pride, and down fell the morsel the fox had spied. "Ha, ha," said the fox, "and now you see you should not listen to flattery. Vanity, sir, is a horrid vice. I am sure the lesson is worth the price." Now, this is the original text. This is the poem you have read. You have to write the summary of this poem. And do you remember how to write it? Yes, the first sentence should tell us about the main point or the main theme dealt in this poem, and then there should be more sentences to support what you have said in the first line. And it should be very brief but should have all the important words and points mentioned in the poem. You have to write it in your own words. You can use conjunctions to join sentences. You can even use other things like pronouns. You can change them to pronouns. You can use adjectives and use all the adjectives in one sentence with commas. So you have so many ways of making it short. You are going to leave all the unimportant points which are there and keep the important ones. Now, what are the important things mentioned? The first one is that you should not listen to flattery. Now, the others are there was a raven, Mr. Raven, and there was a fox, Reynard the fox. What did he see? A morsel. So, a morsel is very important. And then, handsome bird, such feathers, and you would only sing. These are the key points. Then, the next stanza, the voice was just a croak, then foolish pride, and down fell the morsel. And the last stanza, of course, has the moral. You should not listen to flattery, vanity, horrid wise, and lesson worth the price. Now, when you are reading it once, you should read it quickly and you should remember just what the poem is about, which of course we have already done. Now, in the second reading, when you read carefully, these important keywords which you think are important should be underlined, or you should take some notes and write these. After you have written these keywords, now you have to use these keywords to frame sentence paragraph of summary or a summary using these words. Now, how can we write? If you have to write the summary of the whole poem, you are going to start with the first stanza and keep on adding important lines one after the other. So I told you if it is the whole poem, it is 16 lines. You could have just 5 to 6 sentences. But if it is just maybe 2 stanzas, 8 lines are there, then you can have just 3 to 4 sentences. If it is the summary of the second half, again that means 2 stanzas, 3 to 4 sentences. So you have to remember to write it in short with all the important points mentioned. You can leave the ones which you think are unimportant, but then you cannot leave something which is important. You have to stick to writing it in short, but including all the important points. Now let us start with the first stanza. Once, you can say once, or you can just start directly. Mr. Raven was sitting on a branch of a tree. A fox came under the tree and saw a morsel in his mouth. 2 lines for this stanza. But if you think it is too long when you are writing it, then you can join these 2 lines. Once Mr. Raven was sitting on a branch, and Reynard the fox came, saw a morsel in his mouth, and wanted this morsel. Finished? Now the second stanza. What did the fox do? That is important. So the fox indulged in flattery, or the fox used flattery. And what he said, we are not going to write these in as many words as mentioned in the poem. We are going to take the essence or the meaning and write it down in short. So the fox admired the crow, said he was a handsome bird with beautiful feathers, and only if he could sing, the birds would of the forest would call him a king. Now the third stanza. The raven who did not see the joke, that means the raven did not know or could not find out that the fox was just teasing him. His voice was not good, and he opened his beak to sing, and the morsel fell down on the ground. And the last one, of course, is very important, that the fox gave some advice to the raven. He told the raven that the raven should not listen to flattery, and vanity is a very bad vice. And so he had to pay this price by just losing the morsel. Now, this was in short the poem, but when you are writing the summary, the main theme, the name of the poet, and the name of the poem have to be there in the first line. So what are you going to write? In the poem The Raven and the Fox, the poet La Fontaine tells us or teaches us that one should not listen to flattery. Or you may write that one has to pay a price for listening to flattery. This is the theme of the poem, so we write it first. Then all the other lines which support this main theme. Now, first, of course, first stanza doesn't tell you about this listening to flattery, but it describes the scene around or what had happened. So we will have to write about it. So once Mr. Raven was sitting on a branch of a tree, comma, a fox came under the tree and saw a big morsel in the beak of the fox. Then the fox wanted to get it, so he started flattering the raven. He said that he was a handsome bird with beautiful feathers, and only if he would sing, the birds of the forest would call him king or would make him a king. The third one then we add, the raven did not see that it was just a joke, he was teasing him, or he was trying to flatter him. He did not know that his voice was awful or his voice was very irritating, and he opened his beak and the morsel of food fell down. After taking the morsel of food, the fox advised him or preached him that vanity is a big vice and one should never indulge in vanity and should not give in to flattery or listen to flattery. Now, this is the way you have to write the summary. Of course, you can use your different way, but it should be grammatically correct. It should include all the important points mentioned in the poem while you are framing a summary. Now, Mr. Raven was perched upon a limb are the words used in the poem. We have to write the summary in our own words. So we are not going to use the words perched or limb. We are going to use simple words We can use the meaning or we can use a synonym for these words. So sitting on a branch, simple words. And words like morsel you can repeat because it's a key word, but you can even use a bite of food which is given in the meaning or in the word bank. Then what he said, that you are a handsome bird, such feathers. You can repeat that he called him a handsome bird with beautiful feathers and only if he could speak. Then croak you can change in your words, or you can use some other word for croak. And words like spied can also be changed because spied is used in the poem. In normal prose, we don't use such words. So you can say secretly observed. You can say even use a simple word like saw that he had a morsel in his beak. The moral, of course, you put it first as the main sentence after mentioning the name of the poet and the name of the poem. Now, I hope you will be able to write the summary of this poem in your own words. In short, 16 lines are there. I want you to write the summary in around 6 sentences. I'll give the homework in the ERP Prep app. You can read and do it in your English notebook. I hope everyone has written what a summary is, how to write a summary, qualities of a summary in the notebook. And the last homework which I had asked you was to write a summary of the old Gumby cat, which you should have done by now. If you have not done, please do it and keep your work complete. Now, let us do a quick summing up of whatever we have done so far in summary writing. Summary writing is just not something you learn for your exams and then forget. Because writing summary will be needed till higher classes and even when you grow up. Whenever you are sent to a seminar or a meeting as a representative of your organization or your company, you will be asked to write minutes of the meeting. Or minutes of the meeting means summary of the meeting. And you will have to write all the highlights, whatever was discussed in the meeting, and leave the unimportant points. If you are working for yourself, you have a business, or you have some other work which you do independently, you may be asked or you may need to write a summary of whatever you do to advertise or to tell others about your work. So it is a life skill which you need till you grow up and even after you start working. So this has to be learned properly. Now, what is a summary? In simple words, if someone wants to tell me what a summary is, that child can just say that summary is writing something in brief, something in short. It's a shortened version of the original text. But not just the shortened version, it has to, in this short version, it has to have, you have to include all the important points, the key sentences mentioned in the poem or in the prose This year we are not going to do summary of the prose text, but you will be doing it in higher classes. So you may be asked to write a summary of a passage, an unseen passage, an essay, an article, a speech. So you have to follow these rules only and write the summary. Now, summary means something in brief, something in short, but should include all the key points or the main points. Now, how to write a summary? There are a few things you need to remember. First, read it quickly. Just see what this original text is talking about, whether it's a poem or a prose. Then you must read a second time carefully and make notes and mark keywords. After you have made notes or marked keywords, you have to see which sentences you want in the beginning and which words you will use to frame sentences and then use them later. The first sentence, the introductory sentence, is very important, and so you should include the name of the poem, the name of the poet, and also the main theme of that poem or what the poem or the prose is talking about. Then write a summary which should be around one third of the length of the original text. But please do not get stuck on this point that if it is 15 lines, it has to be 5 lines. You could have one more line or maybe one line less if you are able to include all the important points. But roughly around one third of the length. You could even have instead of 6, 7 to 8 sentences. Then you have to write in your own words. You have to see that it is grammatically correct, punctuation marks are there or not, the sentences are framed properly or not, is the grammar correct or not, then revise it properly. And please remember not to include your opinions or feelings about the text. You have to stick to the text, whatever is there in the text, only summarize that. If you have an excerpt which is from a book which you have read, you may want to show your knowledge. You may want to add certain things which were there in the story before or after. Please refrain yourself from doing that. You have to just stick to the text which is given to you. Just write the name of the poet or the name of the writer. If it is a prose, and write it in short, one third of the length, almost one third of the length. Use all the important points or the keywords. Don't leave anything important. And give a short, attention grabbing title. You don't need to write the full sentence, the complete sentence. It could be just 2 words or 3 words, but it should be able to attract someone's attention and want that person to read the summary. But a title is not always asked. You may be writing summary without a title at times. So please remember these points when you are writing a summary. And you have to write, as I told you, the summary in short with all the important points, keywords, and important ideas mentioned in the poem. Please do not write it in short and leave important points. Even if you have exact number we want in the summary, but if you leave out some important things, then you cannot score that well. Thank you, children. Till we meet next time with another important, interesting topic. Thank you.